Well, there it is, WTiiWarcraft here, and welcome to the behind the scenes for Age of Noob Empires. So I wanted to do a little bit of a video to show you guys the makings of how some of these videos come to be, the highly edited ones. It was a video that I knew I was going to create the moment I played this game, because this person, J-Rock, such an enigma, such an anomaly. It's just, I've never come across this before in Warcraft 3. Have I ever come across someone that played so much like an artificial AI that was almost learning to progress throughout the game? So when I finished the game, I thought, am I just going to upload the gameplay footage? No. Sometimes I do. But this case, I wanted to do something a little bit more. This deserved a little bit more. So I was thinking, how am I going to theme this video? What does it make me think of? It made me think of Age of Empires. Watching this person play, going through the ages, Dark Age, Feudal Age, Castle Age, you know. It really brought back some old nostalgia feelings watching this person, almost like he was teching throughout the ages, and then once he teched, he worked out that he could build a couple more buildings because he required those to go through to the next age. If you haven't seen Age of Noob Empires, watch that video first, because this video will make a lot more sense after the fact. So what you're looking at right now is the Sony Vegas file for Age of Empires Age of Noob Empires. So you might think, because of the way the video was done, that I used some sort of trickery to just allow the peasants to sound like Age of Empire villagers and all of the Age of Empire sounds and music that goes with it. Unfortunately, no. I was considering something like that, perhaps changing the sound files of Warcraft 3, but I couldn't seem to get it to work how I thought it was going to work. And even when I realized I did, it wasn't going to work, because throughout the video, it will go from 1 times speed to like 4 times speed. And that wouldn't work, because then the villagers would sound like Rogan? Rogan? Instead of Rogan, you know, that kind of thing, like, yes, correct us. And they go, correct. So when you speed up the video, obviously everything else speeds up, including the audio. So I had to manually do everything here. Manually do everything. So every single selection, movement requires its own process of implementing the Age of Empires 2 sound to collaborate alongside it. So, for example, let's see.
Mandatum.
This is the villager select. This is the villager movement. So if you watch this bit, that was selecting the villagers and then sending them over here. He doesn't even hit the gold mine correctly. So I implement these all the way through the video. There's a lot that goes into it, more than you would think. So it took a little bit longer than I was hoping, but it's partly because I'm so OCD and so obsessed with trying to get it 100% accurate, as best as one can get when you're essentially associating Age of Empires 2 sounds with Warcraft 3. I picked the sounds that I felt collaborated correctly, such as the lumber camp being the lumber mill, the barracks being the barracks, footmen obviously sounding like the Age of Empires 2 units whenever they're produced. The heroes in Warcraft 3 got a slightly different sound, so I looked at some heroes for Age of Empires 2. They just sound the same as normal units, except a little bit meatier, so I used those. Obviously the towers, anytime an upgrade is completed, in terms of the building upgrading into a guard tower, it would play the guard tower sound. Whenever a guard tower is selected, it would play the guard tower sound. And this would happen off the screen as well, because I wanted to get that feeling that you knew exactly what this person was doing throughout the game, because it plays with the auto camera. I had 2 different aspects of going through this. I had the thought of playing with, say, for example, just one static position here. But then you don't see what's going on over here, because later on as the video progresses, he starts to build towers. So I thought it would be cool to utilize the auto camera, which gives it a kind of organic feel, which helps to alleviate versus the robotic style of this player. So it's kind of an interesting contrast. And I was thinking, considering sort of recording the gameplay twice at one time speed from like this position, which would cover most of the buildings, but not quite everything that comes over to here, and this position, and then somehow swapping between those two in the Sony Vegas program. But then it felt, as I watched it through, kind of more cool to go with auto camera, even though it didn't always automatically follow exactly what it was he was clicking on or following himself. So sometimes the auto camera will go off, but you'll still hear sounds because he's technically doing something elsewhere. And that's why I put those sounds in, to let you know what it is that he's doing. But you can see this kind of process of how the auto camera makes it feel as if you're watching through his eyes. So that's what I liked about that. So that was the reason for going behind that aspect. So every time a building is completed, it would play the sound of when it's completed. Every time a building was being constructed, it had the Age of Empires 2 construction sound. So, for example, let's come over and have a listen. This is the construction. So this will be before a farm gets completed or something, or a lumber mill. So just that sound alone. And then, obviously, it ends because this is when the lumber mill gets created. So that sound there. That's an Age of Empires 2 lumber mill. So you see everything accords to exactly what he is doing, whether you necessarily see it on the screen at the time or not. For the most part, it does capture what he's doing, but as I watched through the auto camera, it was a little bit frustrating when he would do certain things and you wouldn't quite see it, so I really wanted to hammer through the sounds. The music was picked. Not all of it flows exactly how the same soundtrack does flow. It's from the Age of Empires Definitive Edition, the soundtrack. Age of Empires 2, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, both great. So I went with the Definitive Edition of this. The sounds are essentially from the Definitive Edition, except for possibly the defeat music that plays at the end. I'm pretty sure that's almost from like classic Age of Empires 2.
Yay, yours.
So this music was just... Oh, that's the cool bit. Hang on a sec, I'll get to this... So right from the beginning, you know what you're in for.
There it is.
And that's going to pique your curiosity. You're like, what is this video? Why am I looking at this guy doing nothing? And it's the build-up of suspension. And then when that unit gets selected,
Ready.
it hits hard. And you're like, all right, I think I know what I'm in for here.
Yours.
And he then...
Correct.
Right as he goes up to building the tower, he corrects himself
Yeah,
to go back to doing like virtually nothing. It's so fantastic, right off the gate, right out the gate. So, what else can we explain? So the musical sort of like is essentially hand-picked, but they're more or less my favorite tracks. But I felt like they also fit the theme of how he was constructing. So the music gets a little bit more socially developed, I would say, in terms of the society and civilization as he reaches the later ages. So it's not quite as basic as the fundamental starting track that you hear there. That's also a really good nostalgic track, though. So that's the Arcane Sanctum sound being finished. So I associated an Age of Empires 2 sound for their buildings to come with this. So you can see you got a music file here that's called Farm, Tower, Lumber Mill, Racks, Arcane Sanctum, Griff, Fault. So the Griffin was basically the stables because it was the only one that sounded like animalistic. You've got the tower attack noise, the town hall. So whenever it upgrades, it has that town hall sound. So that's when it's selected. That's when it upgrades. So there's sounds from Age of Empires 2 for when a unit is selected, when a unit is moved, when a building is selected, when a building upgrades. And they're all different, but at the same time themed. So I'm playing essentially as the Britons for the Age of Empires 2 sounds. Ready, correct us. So whether this guy is British or not, I have no idea. The Izmir part, I don't think it's very British, but I like the Britain sounds. So I use those as a fundamental because he's also a human player. So I don't know. I guess you could say he was French, he was German, he was whatever. But I just went with Britons because that's what I know. So we have villagers being ready. So you got this, all the sound files you can see. And I've got all these. These are marker points of when he basically does something. So not every single bit is marked because I was watching it through. So you might be wondering how I went through the process of doing this, because I was saying that the auto camera doesn't always follow, right? And he will do something essentially what is off of your vision when you're watching a video. So the way I got around this was to have my Sony Vegas program. This was on the left-hand monitor, and this was on the right-hand monitor. So I would watch this through at 1x speed. Yes, I put a lot of time and effort into this and made sure that I followed every single thing he was doing. So you could see what he's clicking on. I didn't actually put a sound necessarily for the cigarette. I didn't feel like that was necessary when he clicks an enemy building, because you don't necessarily get the sounds from enemy structures. And the same thing for the gold mine. I even researched this. I made sure as best as I could to get it as accurate as possible, because I'm freaking OCD and no one else is going to be paying attention to this other than me, and it's so unnecessary and it does take extra time, but for some reason I can't seem to stop myself. So he does select the gold mine at one point, but I went into Age of Empires and I tried to select a gold pile, turned off the music, turned off the voice volume, only had the sound. I didn't hear anything. So because of that, I didn't associate sound with it. So I only associate sounds when there is a sound to be associated with. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, you're just essentially following him. And sometimes he'll click off, so it doesn't actually show exactly what it is that he's definitely clicking on. This is what I'm clicking on at the moment. But I tried to keep it as accurate as possible. I noticed that for a lot of the video, he's clicked on my Dreadlord. So you'll essentially follow him. And you can kind of tell what it is that he's clicking on because he's got a green circle around it. So what you need to do is you need to essentially watch that unit. And as soon as that unit basically is no longer got a green circle, that means he's clicked on something else. Hopefully it's within your vision, but if it's not, you have to look around. But thankfully, he only really built in 2 places, so I only had to check 2 places. So every single time a green circle would appear somewhere else, I would effectively stop the video, come over to here, and find it in terms of the timestamp. So I'd have to pull this down so I can more accurately see the timestamp over here. Apply a marker, and then apply the sound that corresponds with what it was. Was it a building? Which building was it? Was it a unit? Was it moving? Was it just being selected? And you get the idea. That's essentially the process of this video. It's very simplistic, but at the same time, it was a lot of fun and has a lot more depth to it, which I hope this video has essentially brought out. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that watched the video and enjoyed it. And I thought this was a cool way for me to show you a little bit of behind the scenes of some of these edited videos I do. There's a reason why you don't get so many of them, is because they take a lot of time, at least the ones that I tend to do, because I go a bit overboard and make sure it's so ridiculously accurate that it just cost me that time. Blimey, sorry about that. Very loud. But you can hear the sounds as he's going, because it's playing at 4x speed, so I need to be paying extra attention here. Because obviously I can't play the whole video at 1x speed, because there's points where he just does like practically nothing. So when I felt like it wasn't necessary to be watching him so carefully, I put it to 4x speed, but I still applied those sounds. And those sounds are obviously at 1x speed, so you get that kind of organic feel rather than ready? Like, it wouldn't sound right if it was sped up as well, the audio. So one thing that can also help you find the timestamps essentially for these audios is to take the actual audio from Warcraft 3 itself.
Upgrade complete.
So that, for example, was upgrade complete. So you could also be listening to that if you don't catch it properly through the replay. And obviously the Warcraft 3 replay system is a bit painful. I have to sometimes go back and then watch it again. So because that's when upgrade is complete, right? That's my castle being completed. This should be the castle sound here. So let's see if that's correct. I'll mute the other things. It's one of those two. So that's an Age of Empires town hall when it upgrades. So you see what I mean? Everything that happens in this has its own sound that collaborates. And I felt like it came across really well. I have no idea how the video's done because this is essentially recorded before the video's been released. But yeah, there's the Izemir bit. I am Zir. I wondered how I was going to tackle I am Zir. I suppose this is the last part of the video where I just explain this. I am Zir. I just want to put a bit of flash to that because that's the only thing he said and it doesn't make any sense and it's bonkers. And the people at Twitch chat loved it when it came across. And I've been getting comments for quite a while now saying, where's Iamsir? Because they know what happens during my Twitch streams and they suspect which videos are probably going to go up onto YouTube. And they haven't seen this video obviously yet because this probably would have been published by now because it's an easy port. You just play the game. You think, oh, that was a cool game. People on YouTube are really going to enjoy that. I'll clip it from the start to the end, upload it over to YouTube, put in the relative tags, thumbnail, etc. Good to go. But this one I wanted to do just a little bit more. So I said this to the microphone, but the original sound is actually at the end, which I kept as a little bit of a surprise. I didn't know which order to do it, whether to use the original sound, which is essentially me shouting from across the room, how I thought he was doing it. But for the impact, I wanted it to be quite close to the microphone and loud. Because it just comes out of nowhere. So when you're watching this video, you're like kind of relaxing. And I want it to be a relaxing, enjoyable video because of Age of Empires 2 being so smooth. But then this just shocks you. Just for a moment, you're just like, what the hell was that? Okay, so where are we right now? This is the attack of the towers. So this is when he starts team killing for some obligatory reason. I guess he's just trying to work out what things do. Because that kind of looked like a brand new player just coming into the game and didn't pay any attention and was just starting to team kill. So you'll notice that you've got a bar here. This is when he's not looking at the towers. So the sound is quieter. That's a water elemental dying. Again, I was kind of like, what? Am I going to put a sound in for the water elemental dying? Because technically it's not a unit. But then again, Age of Empires 2 don't have summons. So I would treat that as it's a unit because it's a unit that's been created. So you might hear that noise of the unit being created, a unit, a warrior, brrr, and you might have noticed that there was no unit coming out, there's no footman coming out of the barracks. But that was the water elemental being created. And that sound is also the water elemental dying. So, because you can see at the bottom left, he fades. Okay, so where are we? Ah, that's right, the towers. So when he's looking at the towers, it's a bit louder. But when he's not looking at the towers, it's quieter. So you have these phases where he's not looking and then he is looking. I was considering doing that for every single sound when he's not looking at it. But then I didn't feel it was as necessary because I wanted the audience to still clearly hear distinctly the buildings, even if he wasn't looking, so you could know what it was he was doing. As for the tower consistently attacking, I didn't feel like that was necessary. However, I thought it was a nice touch to sort of lower the volume and increase the volume as it dipped in and out of the fission. So here's the very last stage. So that's the Age of Empires 2 sound when you get defeated. But then this music that follows, I'm pretty sure is just from classic Age of Empires 2, but I didn't actually confirm it. It sounds very old school. Very nostalgic. Because when I tried to replicate defeat in Age of Empires 2, it didn't play the sound that I thought it was going to play. So I decided to use this. And here is the very original last sound of I Am Zir, where I shout it across the room, as I thought I wanted to feature it one way or the other. You think that's the end of the video, and then I am Zir! Because that one sounds a little bit more foreign, and it didn't necessarily fit in with the Britain theme, but this guy kind of should have been foreign. I actually went through Google Translate, and I was thinking about which country am I going to use for that? But in the end, I just ended up saying it myself. So thank you very much for watching. This was a video just to show you some of the behind the scenes and also a little way to show the patrons that actually help support this channel. So if you are a supporter of Patreon, thank you very, very much. If you're not, perhaps consider it. It really helps videos like this get created because they take so much time. So patreon.com/WTiiWarcraft, WTii Warcraft. There used to be like a reward system, but I noticed that over the time, a period of those rewards being put out, such as extra videos for people, the view count for those videos wouldn't collaborate with the amount of people that were actually supporting. So it just came across as though the people that actually supported there were just supporting for the sake of supporting. So if you was in a position where you weren't able to subscribe on Twitch or, donate otherwise, then perhaps, just a small tip on Patreon each month was a way to show support. Then that's what this kind of video content is for, just to show you what it is that I do with some of my time, and to be very appreciative of those people that do create that content. Because I was thinking, should I just create this for Patreons? But then you might only get a very small count of views, and those Patreons are essentially, for the most part, from what I can tell, not donating for a reward. They're just donating to support. So this video becoming public shows the greater scheme of people that watch me on YouTube what it is that I do. So it's more in that essence of sort of like just showing support from that front. So thank you so much. Thumbs up the video, subscribe, perhaps consider becoming a Patreon. But it was just cool for me to chat through this and show you what I do. Perhaps I'll do more of these videos if you enjoy this kind of stuff, for whenever there is an edited video, because there will be a few, but I do them in periods. So this video is taking a fair bit of time, so I'll take a little bit of time off and then consider my next project, because this is essentially a project. It's a fun project, but it's a project that takes time. So that's it. Thank you so much again. Have a wonderful time, and I will see you later. Bye bye. Take care.